I thought I knew my husband, then I found photos of his other family on an old laptop. My husband John and I have been married for 5 years. We met in college when we were both sophomores. I was studying nursing and he was majoring in accounting. We had a class together and hit it off right away. John was charming, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. We started dating after a few weeks and things just clicked. I remember being impressed by how mature and put together John seemed for a college guy. He was always talking about his future plans and career goals. He told me he came from a small town and was the first in his family to go to college. I admired his drive and ambition. We dated throughout college and things got pretty serious. John was my first real relationship and I fell hard for him. He was always so attentive and romantic. He'd surprise me with little gifts or plan elaborate dates. Looking back, I realize he was probably overcompensating, but at the time it just made me feel special. After graduation, we both got jobs in the same city. I started working as a nurse at the local hospital and John got an entry-level position at an accounting firm. We moved in together and started building a life. It felt like everything was falling into place. John proposed on our 3-year anniversary. It was a fairy tale moment. He took me to a fancy restaurant, got down on one knee, and presented me with a beautiful ring. I was over the moon and said yes immediately. We got married about a year later in a small ceremony with our closest friends and family. The first few years of marriage were great. We were both focused on our careers but made time for each other. We'd go on weekend trips, try new restaurants, and talk about our plans for the future. We discussed having kids eventually but wanted to be more established in our careers first. John's job required him to travel sometimes for audits or meetings with clients. It was usually just for a few days at a time, maybe once every couple months. I never thought much of it, it seemed normal for his line of work. He'd always bring me back a little souvenir from wherever he went. Looking back, there were some red flags I ignored. John was very private about his phone and computer. If I walked into the room while he was on a call, he'd quickly end it. He had a separate work phone that he said was confidential. I told myself it was just for security reasons with his job. He was also weird about social media. He refused to have any accounts, saying he valued his privacy. I thought it was a little odd but respected his choice. Now I realize he was trying to avoid leaving any digital trail of his double life. Everything changed about a month ago. It was a Saturday and John was supposedly on a work trip. I was cleaning out our home office, trying to organize some old papers and electronics. I came across an old laptop of John's that I thought had been broken. Out of curiosity, I turned it on and was surprised to find it still worked. As I was looking through the files to see if there was anything important we needed to save before getting rid of it, I found a folder labeled Family Photos. I opened it expecting to see old pictures of John's relatives, but instead I found dozens of photos of John with a woman and 2 young children I had never seen before. They looked like a happy family, smiling and posing together at various events and vacations. There were birthday parties, Christmas mornings, trips to the beach. John looked so natural and at ease with them. It was like looking at an alternate reality version of my husband. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing trying to make sense of what I was seeing. At first I thought maybe they were cousins or family friends I hadn't met. But as I looked closer at the dates on the photos, I realized many of them were from the past few years, during our relationship and even after we were married. With shaking hands, I kept digging and found more evidence, emails, bank statements, and even a lease agreement for an apartment in a nearby town. It slowly dawned on me that John had been living a double life this whole time. He had a whole other family that I knew nothing about. I spent hours going through everything on that laptop. I found years' worth of emails between John and this other woman, whose name was Madeline. They talked about their kids, discussed household issues, made plans for the future. It was all so domestic and normal. Just like the emails John and I exchanged. I also uncovered financial records showing John had been supporting this other family for years. There were regular transfers to a separate bank account, payments for the kids' school and activities, even a life insurance policy listing Madeline and the children as beneficiaries. I felt like I was going to be sick. How could the man I loved and trusted completely have betrayed me like this? How could he look me in the eye every day knowing he was living such a massive lie? I thought about all the times he was supposedly on work trips, all the late nights at the office. It had all been a cover to spend time with his other family. I confronted John as soon as he got home from his work trip that evening. At first he tried to deny it, saying I must be confused or misunderstanding something. But when I showed him the evidence I had found, he broke down and confessed everything. It turns out he had gotten his high school girlfriend Madeline pregnant when they were 18. They decided to keep the baby and got married young. They went on to have another child a couple years later. John said he felt trapped in the marriage, and when he went away to college he saw it as his chance to start over. He never told anyone at school about his family back home. That's when he met me and started living this double life. For the past 8 years he had been going back and forth between his 2 families, making up excuses about work trips and visiting relatives. He said he truly loved both me and Madeline and couldn't bear to leave either of us. I was absolutely devastated. Everything I thought I knew about my husband and our life together felt like a lie. I couldn't believe he had been able to keep such a huge secret for so long. I felt like such a fool for never suspecting anything. John begged me not to leave him. He said he truly loved me and wanted to make our marriage work. He offered to end things with Madeline and the kids for good if I would give him another chance. But I just couldn't trust anything he said anymore. How could I believe a word out of his mouth after years of such elaborate lies? I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister. I needed time and space to process everything. My whole world had been turned upside down in an instant. I didn't know what to do next or if I could ever forgive such a massive betrayal. My sister was furious when I told her what happened. She wanted me to divorce John immediately and expose his lies to everyone. My parents were more measured in their response. They were deeply disappointed in John but encouraged me to take my time making any big decisions. They suggested marriage counseling if I wanted to try to work things out. I've been staying with my sister for the past few weeks while I figure out my next steps. John has been calling and texting constantly, begging for another chance. Part of me still loves him and wonders if we could move past this. But another part feels like the trust is irreparably broken. I go back and forth every day on what to do. Should I try to forgive him and rebuild our marriage? Or is this betrayal too big to come back from? I'm so lost and confused. I feel like my entire life for the past 8 years has been based on a lie. I don't know who John really is anymore or if anything he ever told me was true. I'm also grappling with a lot of guilt and shame. How did I not see the signs? Were there clues I missed? I've always prided myself on being a good judge of character, but I was completely blindsided by this. It's made me question everything about myself and my relationship. I haven't told many people what's going on yet. I'm embarrassed and don't know how to even begin explaining the situation. A few close friends know I'm going through something but don't have the full story. I'm scared of being judged or pitied when the truth comes out. I've thought about reaching out to Madeline, John's other wife. Part of me wants to compare notes with her to see how much she knew. But I'm also terrified of opening that door and making this mess even more complicated. What if she didn't know about me either? I don't want to blow up her life too. For now, I'm just taking things day by day. I'm trying to focus on self-care and getting my head straight before making any big decisions. I've started seeing a therapist to help process everything. It's been helpful to have a neutral party to talk to. I know I have a long road ahead no matter what I decide. If I try to work things out with John, it will take years to rebuild trust. If I leave, I'll be starting my life over from scratch in my late 20s. Both options are daunting. I guess I'm looking for advice from anyone who has been through something similar. Is it possible to come back from a betrayal this huge? Am I crazy for even considering giving John another chance? How do I begin to move forward when my entire reality has been shattered? Thank you for reading this far. It helps just to get it all out, even to strangers on the internet. Any words of wisdom or support would be greatly appreciated as I try to navigate this nightmare. Update 1. It's been about 2 months since my original post. First, I want to thank everyone for all the supportive comments and messages. It really helped me during such a difficult time. A lot has happened since I found out about John's secret family. After staying with my sister for a few weeks, I decided to move back home and give marriage counseling a try. I wasn't ready to throw away our relationship without at least attempting to work through things. The counseling sessions were intense and emotional. We went twice a week for several hours each time. John seemed genuinely remorseful and committed to rebuilding trust. He cut off all contact with Madeline and the kids, giving me full access to his phone, email, bank accounts, and work schedule. We talked through every detail of his deception. John explained how it started and how he justified it to himself over the years. He said he felt trapped in his young marriage to Madeline but didn't want to abandon his kids. When he met me in college, he saw a chance at the life he really wanted. But he couldn't bring himself to leave Madeline and the children either. So he started living this double life, telling himself that he was providing for both families and making everyone happy. He became addicted to the thrill and challenge of maintaining 2 separate lives. He said it made him feel powerful and in control. I listened to all of this with a mix of horror and pity. I could almost understand how a scared, immature 18-year-old might start down this path. But to keep it up for so many years, to build an entire life and marriage on lies, it was still unfathomable to me. Despite all this, we were slowly making progress in therapy. John was putting in the work and seemed committed to change. He started volunteering at a homeless shelter and attending support group meetings for compulsive liars. He said he wanted to become a better man, someone worthy of my trust again. I was cautiously optimistic that maybe we could move forward. The love I felt for John wasn't erased overnight. I thought about the good times we'd shared, the plans we'd made for our future. I wanted to believe people could change if they really wanted to. But then something happened that changed everything. About 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call from Madeline. Yes, that Madeline, John's other wife. My heart started racing as she introduced herself and explained that John had finally told her everything after I discovered his secret. Madeline was understandably angry and hurt. But she wasn't calling to yell at me or blame me. She wanted to meet in person to compare notes and get the full truth. She said she had a lot of questions and thought I might too. I agreed to meet her, even though I was terrified of what else I might find out. Madeline and I met for coffee last weekend. It was surreal sitting across from this woman who had unknowingly been part of my life for years. She looked nothing like I'd imagined. We spent hours talking and piecing together John's web of lies. It turns out almost everything John had told me in our counseling sessions was false. Madeline and John never married young due to pregnancy. They met in college just like John and I did. They've been married for 7 years, longer than John and I have. Their kids are only 3 and 1 years old. John had been living this double life for much longer than I realized. He would tell Madeline he was going on work trips when he was really with me, and vice versa. He had separate phones, email accounts, even holiday decorations he would switch out depending on which home he was in. Madeline showed me years' worth of photos, emails, and other evidence that proved John had been lying to both of us from day one. I felt sick realizing how expertly he had manipulated us both. He had given us each a different version of his backstory, tailored to what he thought we wanted to hear. The most shocking revelation was that John has a third family in another state. Madeline had done some digging and discovered he has another wife and young daughter that neither of us knew about. We're not sure how many other secret families might be out there. I left that coffee shop feeling like my entire reality had been shattered all over again. Any lingering thoughts I had of reconciling with John evaporated. I finally saw him for who he truly is, a pathological liar and master manipulator. I filed for divorce the very next day. I've moved in with my parents while I get back on my feet. John has been calling nonstop trying to explain, but I'm done listening to his lies. I've blocked his number and am only communicating through my lawyer now. Madeline and I have kept in touch and are helping each other navigate this nightmare. She's also filing for divorce. We're working together to track down John's other wives/families to let them know the truth. It feels good to have an ally in all this, someone who truly understands what I'm going through. I'm also focusing on rebuilding other relationships in my life. I've reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage. I'm spending more time with my family and letting them support me. It's made me realize how isolated I'd become in my relationship with John. I've started seeing a new therapist to help process all of this. She's helping me work through the trauma and rebuild my sense of self. I'm learning to trust my instincts again and set healthy boundaries. It's a slow process, but I'm making progress. There are still moments where I break down crying, wondering how I could have been so blind. The shame and embarrassment are hard to shake. But I'm trying to be kind to myself and remember that I'm the victim here. John is the one who should be ashamed, not me. I'm grateful to have discovered the truth before having kids with John. I can't imagine how much more complicated and painful this would be if children were involved. It's one silver lining I'm trying to hold on to. I know I have a long road of healing ahead. But for the first time in months, I'm starting to feel hopeful about my future. I'm rediscovering who I am outside of my relationship with John. I'm making plans for myself that don't revolve around him or his lies. Thank you all again for your support during this crazy journey. It helps more than you know to have this community to turn to. I'll update again when there are new developments. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time and trying to stay strong. Update 2. It's been about 6 months since my last update. I wish I could say things have gotten easier, but unfortunately there have been more twists and turns in this saga. The divorce proceedings with John have been a nightmare. He's fighting me on every little thing and trying to hide assets. My lawyer says he's never seen someone go to such lengths to be difficult. It's like John is punishing me for exposing his lies. We've had multiple court appearances where John has tried to paint me as unstable and vindictive. He's claiming I'm making up lies about him to get revenge. It's infuriating to sit there and listen to him spin more deceptions, but I'm trying to stay calm and let the evidence speak for itself. The process has been draining, both emotionally and financially. I've had to dip into my savings to cover all the legal fees. But I'm determined to see this through and not let John manipulate the system like he's manipulated everything else in his life. The one bright spot has been my friendship with Madeline, John's other wife. We've become incredibly close through this shared trauma. She's been my rock and I don't know how I would have gotten through this without her support. Madeline and I continued our investigation into John's past and uncovered even more deception. We found evidence of at least 2 more secret families in different states. It seems John's web of lies stretches across the entire country. We also discovered that John had stolen money from his employer to help fund his multiple lives. He had been embezzling funds for years, cooking the books to cover his tracks. When we turned over the evidence to his company, they immediately fired him and pressed charges. He's now facing criminal charges for embezzlement on top of everything else. But the most shocking revelation came about a month ago. Madeline and I had always wondered how John managed to juggle so many lives without getting caught. It just didn't seem possible for one person to pull off such an elaborate scam for so long. Well, it turns out John wasn't working alone. We uncovered proof that John's parents have been helping him maintain his double and triple lives for years. They would cover for him with his various wives and children, corroborating his lies about work trips and family emergencies. John's parents would pose as clients or co-workers when needed. They helped him set up separate bank accounts and even rented apartments in their names for his secret families to use. They knew about all of John's wives and children and actively participated in the deception for years. I was floored when I found out. I had always gotten along well with John's parents and considered them family. They came to our wedding, sent birthday cards, treated me like a daughter. To learn they had been active participants in deceiving me for our entire relationship was heartbreaking. I confronted John's mom and dad about what we had discovered. Instead of apologizing, they tried to justify their actions. They said they were just trying to protect their son and keep his families from getting hurt. They genuinely seemed to believe they had done nothing wrong. John's mom told me they saw how unhappy he was in his first marriage to Madeline, so when he met me they encouraged him to pursue a relationship. They thought he could manage both families and everyone would be better off not knowing the truth. It was twisted logic that made me realize how deep the dysfunction in John's family goes. Their reaction made me see that John's issues go back much further than I realized. His parents created an environment where lying and living a double life was normalized. They taught him that it was okay to deceive people as long as you had good intentions. It provided some context for how John became the person he is, though it certainly doesn't excuse his actions. This revelation has added another layer of pain and betrayal to work through. I'm back in therapy trying to process it all. Some days I feel strong and empowered, other days I can barely get out of bed. The constant new discoveries make it hard to fully heal and move on. The strangest part is that a small piece of me almost feels relieved to know it wasn't just John lying to me, but a whole family conspiracy. In a weird way, it makes me feel less foolish for not seeing through it sooner. The deception was so elaborate and had so many people involved in maintaining it. I'm still pushing forward with the divorce despite John's attempts to delay things. I'm more determined than ever to get out of this marriage and move on with my life. I know I have a lot more healing to do, but I'm taking it one day at a time. Madeline and I are both focused on rebuilding our lives and helping each other heal. We've started a support group for other victims of long-term deception, and it's been therapeutic to connect with others who understand what we're going through. I'm also throwing myself into my work and considering going back to school to become a nurse practitioner. I want to use this experience to make me stronger and create a better future for myself. Thank you all again for your continued support through this ongoing nightmare. I'll update again when the divorce is finally settled. Hopefully that will be the closing chapter on this part of my life. Update 3. It's been almost a year since this whole nightmare began, and I'm happy to report that I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. It was a long, draining process, but I'm so relieved it's over. John tried every trick in the book to drag things out, but in the end the judge saw through his manipulations. I was awarded a fair settlement, though to be honest I would have given up everything just to be free of him. The criminal case against John for embezzlement is still ongoing. He's currently out on bail awaiting trial. From what I've heard, he's facing significant jail time if convicted. Part of me feels satisfied that he's facing consequences, but mostly I just want him out of my life for good. I've moved to a new city for a fresh start. I got a great job at a hospital and am slowly rebuilding my life. It was scary at first to leave everything familiar behind, but it's been freeing to be somewhere with no memories of John. I've made some new friends through work in a local running club I joined. I'm taking things slow, but it feels good to be social again without the weight of secrets and lies. I've even started dating again, though I'm being very cautious and taking things extremely slowly. Madeline and I are still close. She's also divorced now and doing well. We joke that we're soul sisters, bonded for life by our shared experience. We're planning a freedom celebration vacation together next month. It feels symbolic to be planning for the future instead of being trapped by the past. John is still trying to worm his way back into my life. He sends letters and emails full of apologies and promises to change. I don't respond to any of it. I know now that he's incapable of real change or honesty. The support group Madeline and I started has really taken off. We now have members from all over the country who have been victims of long-term deception. It's been healing to help others and see them regain their strength. We're even talking about turning it into a non-profit organization. I still have moments where the anger and pain of John's betrayal hit me. But those moments are becoming fewer and further between. I'm proud of how far I've come in my healing journey. I'm rediscovering parts of myself that got lost during my marriage. My relationship with my family has grown stronger through all of this. They've been my biggest supporters and I'm grateful for their unwavering love. I'm also rebuilding friendships that suffered during my marriage when I was so isolated. I've started volunteering at a local women's shelter, helping others who are trying to leave abusive relationships. It's given me a sense of purpose and helped put my own experiences in perspective. I hope to eventually use my nursing skills to provide healthcare services to domestic violence survivors. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that I'm stronger than I ever knew. I survived having my entire world turned upside down and came out the other side. I know now that I can handle anything life throws at me.